Righty-ho. Craig, if you could bring your swelling hat up to the front. Oh no, the fine Mayor shoes. You can go to Sylvia Park and go upstairs and find those upstairs. Beautiful things. I do have a pair of Mayor shoes on Craig McElroy's recommendation from a few years back. Oh, we haven't got shoe shops like that in Pookie. Gumboots.
Well, first of all, on behalf of Mayor's Shoes, I'd like to thank Council for the advertorial today. Maybe they'll send me another pair of shoes and arranging all that free advertising for them. Fantastic. Look, I won't read every bullet point. I just wanted to highlight, I think, to me, what the key focus for Healthy Waters is. One is we're actually not a network business. Whether we like it or not, Healthy Waters and Stormwater will always provide 100% availability, except if you don't manage the asset properly, the availability won't be the type of availability that you want, and will cause all sorts of unintended consequences. So what we're doing to try to manage the risk is to really have a huge focus on natural assets. We've actually got far more waterways and ponds than we've got pipes. And that's really the area that we really have to focus on if we're going to be successful. And in that light, the partnerships we've got with iwi Māori and the community are the only way that we're going to be successful, because so many of these assets are on private property. And if we're going to do works in private property, we've got to bring those communities along the way with us. And iwi Māori are a great partner because the ideals that they'd like to see delivered in accordance with their, the way they view the world from a Māori perspective is actually perfectly aligned to what we want to achieve anyway. And so I think that that partnership is actually the thing that makes our business successful. And really linked to that is the collaboration that we've currently got underway with Auckland Transport, with Watercare and with the council parks and community facilities together. You know, I'm actually so pleased that with water reform we've ended up as part of council, because it's those key relationships that make our project successful. And as you know, so much of stormwater management is actually land use management as well, and decisions that are... So you can't look at the infrastructure without looking at all of the planning decisions that are made around land use at the same time. So really pleased to be still part of the council family. I'm sure we'd have been lost if we'd ended up in Watercare, because I look at the numbers of Watercare budgets and our budgets don't compare to Watercare's. But the work is obviously equally as critical. And just lastly, the big things for us obviously in terms of spending money are the water quality targeted rate and also the Making Space for Water program. And yeah, so I just wanted to highlight that. So just emphasising the points that I just made around the fact that we actually have over 16,000 kilometres of streams to look after, and we can only do that, by the way, on a risk prioritisation basis. So we're putting a lot of effort into actually coming up with an asset condition monitoring system, which actually looks at all of the risks in our natural environment, no different to a pipe network, because to me a stream is a pipe without a roof and made of dirt and stones instead of concrete. But everything else about a stream is no different to a pipe. It's just got the ability to overflow into the adjoining environment when it's full of water. And we're actually also getting the accountants, by the way, to think of it like that, because it then means that the work we do in natural waterways can be capitalised. So we're actually looking at capitalising the airspace above the land as a way of actually doing more capital investment in natural streams. But it means the ownership of the land doesn't change, but we just need the air above the land to be available when we get a big storm event. And so I think that way of looking at the asset is very helpful when it comes to defining what a network actually looks like from a stormwater perspective. So yeah, we've got a big asset base. I actually think in asset base numbers, our asset base for stormwater is roughly the same as Watercare's asset base for water or wastewater. From memory, the numbers for Watercare are not dissimilar to Healthy Waters from an actual asset base point of view. The thing about stormwater assets though is they do tend to last longer, because you haven't got quite the same aggressive environment with stormwater pipes as you've got with wastewater pipes, which have all the methane that tends to have a really bad effect on concrete life. And just a couple of numbers for you. Our budget for 23-24 was 135 mil, and if you include the contributions we made to the Water Care Central Interceptor program, our actual for the year was 145 mil, so we just did slightly better than budget. I think it's better. The accountants say it's worse, but I think it's better. And secondly, our budget for this year, including making space for water, is 194 million. So we've got a big budget to deliver this year, and we've made a great start to the year to do that. Just talking about a couple of specific things that we've been up to. A lot of work going on at the moment around, it's been referred to already, around stormwater and wastewater separation. And so what I would say in response to that question from Councillor Walker is that the opportunity is that we want to do the work to maximise the use of the central interceptor, but also to take advantage, as Shane says, of growth, so that we're getting maximum utilisation of the central interceptor, but as growth gets more considerable, we have to take load off the central interceptor, but at the same time keep finding a sweet spot where we maximise its use. And that's the work that we're doing collaboratively with Water Care. So we're doing work in Point Chev at the moment, and that work has been done in stages. The first stage was delivered through Healthy Waters, the second stage was delivered through Auckland transport contracts, and the third stage will be delivered through Healthy Waters, and the stage 2, which is 5 million of work with AT, is nearing completion at the moment, and we're then going into the next stage, which is in design at the moment. So it'd be good, I think, at some stage maybe for the committee to arrange for a site visit to come out and look at some of this work, because I think I'll give you a good feel for the type of issues that are involved, because it is quite invasive in terms of the impact it does have on local communities, and I think it's important to understand that. Unlike a tunnelling process where it tends to be less invasive in order to do separation projects, it does involve a lot of transactions with individual property owners and the like. It's just the nature of the beast. We've also got a big separation project underway in Oakley Creek in Waterview, and we've got that construction work of stage 1 is just underway at the moment, and that's planned to be completed by April 2025, and then we've got a number of other stages that are going to happen in Waterview over the next 7 or 8 years. And look, the only way to do separation in these communities is to actually just do it a bite at a time, rather than dig up a whole lot of different areas and try to do a whole lot of work at once. You're far better off concentrating on a small area, doing it, getting in, doing it properly, moving out of that area. Otherwise, it's just going to cause too much widespread community disruption. So we're very mindful of trying to deliver in a targeted way. Just something a little bit different. Strictly speaking, it's not infrastructure, but I think it's a great example of where technology is taking us. In the Aotearoa catchment, otherwise known as Slippery Creek, between Papakura and Drury, we're actually doing a lot of work with Ngāti Tamaho around cultural health indicators, and that's in partnership with both Ngāti Tamaho and Te Ahi Wari. And we do a thing called environmental DNA, and the beauty of environmental DNA, it gives us a really good indication of the health of the stream and the amount of biodiversity that's occurring in the stream. And I think that's a great example where we can bring both Western science and Te Ao Māori view together, because our vision in Healthy Waters in the future is we'll actually develop a new language which isn't scientific, which isn't Te Ao Māori, but is a combination of the best of both. So I think that's the way we need to look at things, not through two different views, but actually through one new view. And that's the way that we're trying to rock and roll in that space. We've also got some significant culvert upgrades underway at the moment. So in the at Greville Road, where the off-ramp to the motorway is, we're actually putting in a major culvert replacement at the moment. That's about a $20 million project, and that's about 80% complete, so about 2 months away from completion. So that was a major risk that was sitting on our book, because if that culvert had failed, that would have caused such massive disruption to traffic on the North Shore. We've also got a very significant project underway at Pairata Road with a big culvert upgrade there, and that's a $15 million project. about 40% complete at the moment, with an August 2025 completion date. And I once again just want to acknowledge the great relationship we've got working with AT on these projects, because without that relationship things just wouldn't work well. In terms of the work we do with communities, we've got a big stream enhancement program underway in Te Muri Regional Park, and that was funded through the Maharangi Land Restoration Program, which has a lot of support from MFE and central government. And so that's been a great example of a partnership with the local community and with iwi Māori. We're also involved in a really cool project in Mount Roskill. Between Keithay Park and the Molly Green Reserve is I think it's called McKinnon Road? McKinnon Drive. So we're actually going to take the opportunity to form a new blue-green link between those two parks, because a lot of those properties are Cat 3 properties that have been removed, and KO is contributing the land, and Healthy Waters will be doing the infrastructure investment. So we'll have a lovely new waterway that we're creating, which will provide connectivity, allow a lot more connectivity through that whole area. So I think that's a great project and a great example of working collaboratively with KO, and that's an $8 million investment for that program of work. And the other thing just quickly wanted to touch on, you don't often associate dams and healthy waters, but we actually have a number of areas where we are effectively creating flood retention structures, and so they're actually dams, but only temporary dams that occur in heavy rainfall. But obviously the risk is the same as if the dam was full of water the whole time. So we've got a big project underway at East Tamaki at the moment, an $18 million project to strengthen that dam, but we're actually being held up by Waikato Regional Council at the moment. Because the decision was taken a few years ago to contract out the consenting to Waikato Regional Council because of the experience they had with consenting all of the electricity dams, and also that they had a number of specialist staff working for them. But now that a lot of those staff have actually left Waikato Regional Council, there may be an opportunity for where the council wants to bring some of this work back in-house, because at the moment it's been consulted, it goes out to consultants anyway, so we're probably paying a margin to run it through Waikato Regional Council. So that's an opportunity we've identified, because it has been a bit of a cause of frustration when we just want to get on and get this dam sorted out. And that's pretty much all I just wanted to say. That's a photo that may be familiar to some of you. So that's our Clinker Place Stormwater Project, and the kids got to name the TBM. And I think it's one of the best named TBMs in the world. It's called Princess Twilight Superworm. Kia ora. Happy to answer any questions. Kia ora.
Thanks, Craig. Daniel online. Hang on, let's move it. Someone move it. Thanks, Leslie. Second. Thanks, Richard. Okay, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Craig, for the great work you've reflected on Slippery Creek. I did want to just acknowledge the agreement with the developers on the modelling for the stormwater overflow, overland flow within the Slippery Creek catchment for Belfield. That was good that was being resolved. But what I wanted to ask you, I'm very pleased with Healthy Waters' work at the Blackgate Reserve in Weymouth. It's been superb to see that transformation. Craig, how difficult is it to get consenting for new works beyond renewals for urban streams restoration work? I think this work is really transformational. I think it's outstanding. I'd like to see how that can be progressed. I wouldn't want to see that kind of work constrained because of challenges with respect to consenting for obviously these sensitive areas, but these areas which are significantly improved because of the work that eventually gets consented to take place. So what's the challenge for getting those consents for that work?
Look, I think there's an opportunity to look at the way we go about the consenting project. Like, we've got a regional consent now to do all fish passage work in the region, and I think if we can turn our mind to all the work that needs to occur both within urban and rural streams, to be quite honest, my personal view is that it lends itself to some form of regional consenting process where we go through a full consultation, we get a consent, but having got the consent, then it's more a matter of just determining an appropriate set of conditions, but the actual right to do the work is actually through the regional consent process. So that's something, an opportunity that we're currently looking at in Healthy Waters at the moment. Kia ora.
And just to follow up, because that leads on to my next question, what would be the time frame for that? Because I think an approach with one regional consent for an urban streams program could really allow us to kick on with getting these projects done, effectively treating them like a renewal. We just move on to the next one, the next one, the next one. But what's the time frame for work within Healthy Waters?
Oh, look, we're just working through the detail at the moment. I think if we're going to be successful in delivering our Making Space for Water objectives over the next 10 years, we have to do our consenting differently, because at the moment it takes a good 2 years to get a consent. And that time really, if we're going to meet some of the requirements of central government around their anticipation around pace, I don't think that timing is going to work for us. And so collectively as an organisation, I think we have to look at, have a conversation around how we can do things smarter, but still provide for the right degree of public input into the process. Kia ora.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Daniel. Julie.
Thank you, and great to see some photos from Mairohe and projects mentioned there. And for those who don't already know, the McKinnon project is just at the bottom of the street from my house. Molly Green's just at the bottom of the street, so really wonderful to see that underway. I wondered if you could talk a little bit, Craig, if you don't mind, about the involvement of local boards in some of these projects. I know that the local board I was on was very involved with the Molly Green link through to Keithay Park, but perhaps if you could expand a little bit on that. And then I've got one other question. Thanks, Chair.
So when I referred to the partnerships with the community, I'm really, in that context, to me, the local boards become the advocate for the community. And so we are really working very closely with all local boards around activities in each of the local board areas, because getting that local board support right from the beginning makes such a huge difference to how well we can then get on and deliver the outcome. So I think it's an area where, to be honest, we've improved substantially over the last few years with the way that we actually bring the local board view at the table right from the beginning as one of our partners.
Kia ora, and I want to acknowledge the way that you've championed that within the organisation as well, going right back to the Te Aonga project some years ago, 6 years ago now, I think. Probably more than that, actually. Anyway, the other question I had, so in the conversation about the stormwater separation, one of the things that has come up for particularly in Point Chev is the impact on businesses. And at the moment, we don't have a legal framework that allows for any compensation. And it's the same with, in that case, there's an Auckland Transport project there as well. So it's complicated. But I just wondered if you were aware of any work thinking about how do we make visible the impact of these kinds of projects on businesses, and then think about how we can take that into account in the future. It's something I'm going to do some more work on, but I'm just interested in it from a Healthy Waters perspective as well as AT. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I think it's something as a group that we need to look at in a collective sense, because it's AT, it's also work that's been done by other parties, it's Watercare, it's ourselves, it's certainly other contractors as well doing work in the road space. So I don't have a magic solution, but I think for a starter, we need to get all the parties around the table, including, because it may require some amendments to legislation or whatever, and so it needs a multi-party conversation to kick the thing off, in my opinion. Kia ora.
Thanks, Craig. And just to acknowledge too that I think we need to be really clear that it will only be projects above a certain scale of impact. Like, we're not talking about compensation for every little, pothole that gets filled or raised crossing that gets built. We're talking about the ones that have a longevity to them. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Chair. Well done, Craig. I think Princess Twilight Superworm is an outstanding name. Well, hopefully there won't be a next grandchild, actually, if you ask my kids, but that's another story. Too much information. I've just lost my train of thought. Sorry. So, going back to the consenting, you talked about the consenting for the dam that has gone to Waikato District. Is there anything that we can do to help potentially bring that back here and get it done faster to help you?
Look, I'll be having a conversation with the, I can't actually recall the process for the decision to go out into the council in the first place. I think it might have been because Watercare has a number of dams that are already in the Waikato district area, and they did have a lot of staff who were actually on board that were actually dam specialists, but over time, with the way the consulting industry's developed in New Zealand, they've all moved off into, and those sorts of people, by the way, are highly, a lot of them have a strong geotech backgrounds as well, so with all of the drama around the country at the moment, those types of resources are in great demand. It just occurs to me, if we're going to contract out, if it's going to be contracted out to consultants anyway, we might as well just do it directly ourselves and avoid paying a margin on a margin. That was my only...
So putting my value for money hat on, I think we should
and that's really where I'm coming from too. I just think it's potentially just a cost-saving initiative that we could potentially look at. Don't have all the information. It's just a little bit speculative at the moment, but I think it's certainly worth considering.
Well, let's put it on the table and consider it. Thanks. Look, my next question is a hard one, but we get it all the time. You know, people say when it rains and the drains, you know, fill up and cause some flooding, if only council would, you know, clear the drains, you wouldn't have the flooding. How do you help us deal with that layman's question to a very complex, with a complex answer, but that isn't complex?
It's an extraordinarily complicated question, and the reason why it's extraordinarily complicated is that in our greenfield areas, all our new pipes are designed for what's called a 10-year return period, but in the old traditional brownfield areas, a lot of the pipes have only been sized probably for a 2-year return period. But the cost of upgrading from a 2-year to a 10-year across the region, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars. And so whatever process we apply has got to be some logical risk-based approach. And this conversation is actually going to crop up soon when you start having a conversation around contributions under the development contributions, because we've got to map out a future investment program. It even gets more complicated than that, because it's one thing having pipes available, but if there's a blockage in the pipe, and that can be caused by something as simple as a cesspit that's sealed off with leaves, or things can happen in the network where from streams connecting into pipes you get inlets, blockages, etc. That only exacerbates the problem, and so the whole idea of what we're trying to do at the moment is to put in place a risk-based approach where we tackle the highest risk areas and focus on those. Because the point of, we've got so many thousands of kilometres of pipes as well as all of the thousands of kilometres of waterways, it's just not, it's inconceivable that you can go out and micromanage all of those assets. And so we have to, and I think we just need to be totally transparent with the community about what we can and can't do. And this is where there is a degree of self-help that comes into the equation as well. So they're challenging issues. I don't have any magic answer, but the only way I can see to deal with it is being as open and honest with the community as we possibly can. And we are constrained with the amount of money that we can spend. And so we've got to think very carefully about how we go about that process as well.
Gee, I just hope our good friends in the media can pick that up, because it is a common question, and people just need to know that we can't do everything overnight, and there is limited money. So I thought your answer was really good, Craig.
Yeah, and we do have a bit of opportunity. Like, we've got a big program that we're about to launch through the libraries now around improving the visibility around stormwater resilience and how communities can do more to support each other. So I'm going to be on Radio New Zealand next week, and I think it's a morning. What's the program on at 9 in the morning? I can't. Anyway, is that morning report?
9 to noon.
9 to noon. So I'm going to be on 9 to noon next week talking about this very issue, because I think it's a real opportunity to have. This is where this whole community engagement piece and getting as much information out into the community in plain, simple language. So we're trying really hard to create graphics and sort of cartoonising things in a way that people can actually understand what we're talking about. Because traditionally a lot of the stuff has been put in language that no one understands. And, I talk about a 10-year return period. Well, that immediately turns people off because no one would have any idea what the heck you're talking about. So we've just got to language it in a way that people understand.
You should explain it right now.
A 10-year return period. Well, technically a 10-year... Technically, it's what happens on average once every 10 years. But the problem with a 10-year event, you get through them next week. And then the question is with climate change, it's probably not a 10-year event anymore anyway. It's probably a 5-year event because the weather's getting worse and not better. So immediately you confuse yourself. So in my view, we need to talk about small storms, medium-sized storms and big storms or something. We've got to come up with a language that people can relate to. Otherwise, we're just going to lose everyone.
Cool, thank you. Improving how we tell our story. Now, there's a good concept. Alf.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to supplementary to the Deputy Mayor. Barry, can we be assured that the issues that Craig has raised is going to be followed up? I know it was good to ask his advice about what we could do around the consenting process, but I think it's important that, from my perspective anyway, and people around this table, that it is going to be picked up because it is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed. So I just want to make sure that that is going to be picked up from yourself, and then something come back to the committee around what we will be doing. Kia ora, Chair, that's really the only thing. And Craig, just again with all the mahi that you do, and it has been recognised. Kia ora.
Thanks, Alf. Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with all due respect to Deputy Mayor and Mr. McElroy, I just want to challenge what we're actually delivering. You talk about the minutiae. A jumper is actually millions of stitches, and each stitch is important. And I'm thinking now of a phone call I had just last night from a drain layer, where they've been told to add into a wastewater system. However, the wastewater system is overflowing at the manhole. They've engaged with Healthy Waters to come and have a look. The pipe's blocked. It's only 25 metres to the discharge into public property. The first contractor turns up and with a shovel and opens the end of the drain when he was told the problem's in the drain because it's already been cameraed. Then council turns up with a vacuum evacuator truck, sucks the drain out, which is full of water because it's blocked, and they know that, and then says our truck's full, we can't do any more, and leaves. And then Healthy Waters tells the owner and the contractor, this is not our problem, we've had a look. What I'm just trying to put out here is that we sit at this table with all this high vision, as we talk about, whatever it is, but down on the ground, what I heard you say, tell me if I'm wrong, is we're stepping over the minutiae that our whole process is supposed to be able to deal with.
With all due respect, Councillor Turner, that's not the case. So we've got a team that focuses on helping resolve network issues. Now that team works absolutely hand in hand with Watercare, because so often, until you actually get out there and do the diagnostics, it's impossible to determine, is this a wastewater problem? Is this a stormwater problem? It might be a combined area, it might be a separate area. The wastewater might be flowing into the stormwater, etc., etc. And so we do an awful lot of work collaboratively, working between both the organisations, addressing these individual situations, because at the end of the day, when we get a request for service, quite often it'll go to either one organisation or the other, and invariably it involves a joined up approach between the two organisations. Now, there might be at times when we don't get it 100% right, and I have to acknowledge that, but it's not fair to say that we don't take those particular specific issues seriously. We've got a team that's dedicated to actually focus on exactly those types of situations.
Thank you. I wasn't trying to say it's not taken seriously. Probably that's how it came across. I'm just trying to say that it's not happening on the ground. And the one thing I'd just like to add to that is the practicing drain layer or practitioner they're already constrained by a whole lot of rules they have to apply and adhere to on behalf of ourselves, etc. And I just want to eventually investigate how there seems to be a disconnect between that relationship.
Look, on that specific one, if you can maybe just forward me the information, I'm very happy to look into it.
Richard.
Thanks, Chair. Just two questions. One is on Ken's point, and I guess how do we get some of that maybe in a local level to local boards? Because I know there is something like 320 catch pits that your team focus on before a storm event, but you couldn't do all 99,000 catch pits before a storm event across Auckland because our rates would be 7 times the cost. So how do we get that information out, and I guess that 1 in 10, so that's like a 10% chance. Our rain events are much larger than that, but how are we telling people it's not that little handful of leaves that cause the flood? It's the fact the pipes are full of water.
I mean, where this is all heading to my mind, is that we probably need to put more resource and effort into, and it's really probably linked to what the Mayor was talking about before, isn't it? The whole way that we communicate and engage with our communities. The focus has always been on the hard infrastructure side of things, but particularly in the healthy water space that we're operating in. And it might sound a bit trite to say it, but that relationship with the community and getting is actually the only way we're going to be successful at working through, because each area's got their own individual problems that are really important to them. But it's so hard when you're dealing with such a big region with so many of these individual hotspots. And so we have to come up with a better way of how we allocate resources and work through these individual issues.
Okay. And last question, and I'll ask the same of Auckland Transport, because I know that some of your team in Auckland Transport were at the World Green Infrastructure Conference the last 2 days. I was there, it was phenomenal, but I'm still unsure how we link, apart from these mega projects, how do we get more green infrastructure? Because watching the internationals present, to us, it does feel like we are well behind, and part of that is that it doesn't happen automatically, to reduce heat, to reduce stormwater overflows, to get the greening of our infrastructure. And I know part of it's the RMA and government wanting to add costs, but how do we get that sort of stuff happen faster without these big making space for water projects being the only thing?
Well, I think when you look at, you're actually looking at the whole development world, and so if we haven't got some work happening between the public and the private sector, this isn't going to happen. And I think one of the difficulties we've got at the moment when we look at some of this work, if you're taking a really hard-nosed approach around delivering outcomes to the lowest cost in order to deliver an outcome, you probably wouldn't deliver some of these green infrastructure solutions, because the cost-benefit analysis has to take into account in a different way how you value the external environment. And I think this is where we run into strife, because the whole way we measure success and what success looks like, you almost need to change your currency of how you view decision making. If you're going to deliver some of these outcomes and they're going to follow a normal procurement process, which would be the best cost benefit ratio, I think the issue we've got at the moment is that we undervalue the benefit of some of the assets that we're creating from a wider community health perspective. And I'm talking now about health in the wider sense. Yeah. Because there's no doubt about it, when we're successful and do a project and the way the community values it, I think we don't fully account for that in the way that we do our work. Now, this is a brief conversation I've had with the council economist, and I think he would agree with me, because if we don't start from that fundamental starting point of the business case and how we do a cost-benefit analysis, we're not going to necessarily get to what we believe to be the right long-term answer. And in these current economic times, of course, there's such a focus on low-cost outcomes because everyone's short of cash. But probably that's to the detriment of what the long-term needs are probably going to be. These are challenging issues, but we do have to start to put our mind to them, I think.
Cool. Thank you, Craig. You can wander back. Any discussion on this? Ken.
I listen to all this stuff and I try to equate it to what I see on the ground with a shovel in your hand rather than a pen on your hand and a keyboard in front of you. And I listened to those comments about a cost-benefit analysis, but I think we have to try to extract some of our considerations. You know, we have to identify our principal considerations, which is water not being in your lounge, and how do you do it quickly and efficiently and cost effectively. I listen to what is said and I think, yeah, that's right, but I still can't equate it to what the people are telling me on the streets, which is the drain's blocked, and if the drain wasn't blocked, I wouldn't be flooding all the time. I have people say to me, yes, it was a flood. You can't, it was a flood today, Ken, and floods are going to happen. But the frequency of the events they are experiencing, they are equating, and I think rightly so, in part, to our infrastructure being substandard, under-maintained, or overwhelmed by our own planning exercises, not Mother Nature. So I just want to try to bring to the table the consideration of the reality or the observations of the people which they consider their reality. And I agree with it. I don't know how else to explain myself, but I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? None. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. And against, carried. Thanks, team. We're going to break for lunch for half an hour. Sorry, AT. But we've got two transport items after lunch. And so quarter past will be fine. Rush out, grab yourself something, come back. Thanks, team.